Lunacy is not a form of personal or public degradation, for it is a level of the world of unknown politics. Everything's living in a conspired dream of control, a mass conformity, below the threshold of consciousness or apprehension, specifically involving or using stimuli that become effective subconsciously by repetition. The government knows this and uses it against you. We must be aware of the soundness of mind and judgment to see through the iron curtain in front of our eyes so we can question the truth. Your choice to believe what I tell you at your own risk. These are controversial topics that have become the great conspiracies of the world. You will hear information that is graphic and can be disturbing to people extremely sensitive to worldviews and religions. So please, listeners' discretion will be advised.
And welcome to Subliminal Sanity. I'm your host, Judas.
And I'm Crowley.
And welcome to Show 20, Dr. Eugees. Breakdown of last week's show was the corporation. Obviously, if you did tune in, it was quite the interesting collaboration there of mind-blowing topics and history and, letting you kind of know that we're all this subservient slaves willingly, literally.
I got an idea about all this stuff. Think about this. So we got a political system, right? So we're supposed to be a democracy, right? Well, how can you have a political system and a financial system at the same time? They can't coexist with each other.
Well, go ahead and elaborate. Why don't you elaborate?
Democracy works pretty good with capitalism because if everybody wants to buy that kind of TV, then those other kinds of TVs go out of business, right? So capitalism and democracy are pretty much like the same idea, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like fascism
or fascism where all the money goes to the government. So it's a different kind of money system altogether, right?
Yeah.
So really, when they talk about different kinds of government, they're talking about different kinds of money exchange. Corporation.
Well, haven't I said for a long time now, in politics you have three things that are majorly there. You got money, you got your beliefs, and then you got the people. And then when people walk out on politics and say, I don't care, well, you just said that you didn't care about your own personal beliefs or your money. And think about it like this, too. Just because you may believe in what's on the table there and not maybe want to go with the program, who knows that how you are today is how you're going to be 10 years from now. Maybe 10 years from now you'll start taking an interest in what's going on in the world today and what your future really holds, own a business, all these other things. Before you know it, you find out freedom really ain't all that fucking free these days. Pretty quick.
The freer you want to be, the more you got to spend.
To the corporation.
You really want to be free? It's only $365,000. A day.
A day? Yeah. Well, how much does it cost to usually have a kid? From what I hear, it's about $1 million all the way until they're, the first year of their life?
Figure about $10 million. Then you're really free.
$10 million. Yeah, go have 3 of those kids. I don't know what. So anyway, we're going to fast forward this a little bit here. Welcome to Dr. Eugees. And we're going to bring you for this week's show some wonderful quotes for truth in Socrates' poisoning. If you could, Tiffany, do the wonders back there and in the wonderful Wizard of Oz and play the Vic clip that we got there.
Shortly before dying, Socrates spoke his last words to Crito, saying, "Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Do pay it. Don't forget." Socrates understood that we leave this world with nothing, and what we leave behind goes to the gods or government, an oxymoron because they are the same. And that is the truth in Socrates' poison.
The threat to status quo is us. That's why they keep you afraid. Bill Hicks. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson. There comes a day when you realize turning the page is the best feeling in the world because you realize there is so much more to the book than the page you were stuck on. Zayn Malik. A paranoid is someone who knows a little of what's going on. William S. Burroughs. And this brings me to Dr. Eugees, the war on drugs. Welcome again to your weekly dose of Subliminal Sanity. Before we start the show, I would like to refer back to Show 1, Belief, and Show 2, Hallucinogens, and how they link to the subconscious and conscious realities. And if you have been a diligent listener from then all the way till now, kudos. And you will see how this show ties in with not only those two, but will be a furthering to the enlightenment already triggered from then, and to open your eyes even further to this surfacing conspiracy of the war on drugs. What you're about to hear is no secret, okay? It's not classified information. It is very commonly discovered by anyone who questions the very notion of the war on drugs, what it implies, and where and who is this all coming from, okay? And defeating at the same time. So if you sit there and think about what you will hear tonight is a more personal outlook to it, something that is overlooked in this debate more times than considered, is the thoughts of the people rather than the laws of our nation. So you're not only going to hear history of the war on drugs, but where it comes from, what the truth is, and where the foundation of these terms we use so effortlessly today had come from. Our thoughts and ethical perceptions to this topic, Dr. Eugees. And if we can go ahead and thank Michael, who recommended the show. Thank you very much, Mike. And if you could, Tiffany, go ahead and play clip 1 to introduce the show for Dr. Eugees.
Agent Dr. Eugees.
Call the doctor, make you feel right.
Agent Dr. Eugees.
When you're feeling low and you want to feel high.
Agent Dr. Eugees.
See, I think drugs have done some good things for us. I really do. And if you don't believe drugs have done good things for us, do me a favor. Go home tonight, take all your albums, all your tapes, and all your CDs and burn them. Because you know what? The musicians who made all that great music that's enhanced your lives throughout the year, real fucking high on drugs.
It's not a war on drugs. It's a war on personal freedom is what it is, okay? Keep that in mind at all times. It's not a war on drugs. It's a war on personal freedom is what it is, okay? Keep that in mind at all times. It's not a war on drugs. It's a war on personal freedom is what it is, okay? Keep that in mind at all times.
I went from hotshot lawyer to cocaine addict. And I didn't just ruin myself. I spread disaster among my family, friends. I stole for cocaine. See, cocaine torments you till you do anything to get it.
When I was doing cocaine, I got so selfish. I wish I didn't have no one. No kids, no parents, no people who loved me.
I don't know how I got there, but I sold everything for cocaine. Anyone that says cocaine's not addictive, they lie.
When you do cocaine, You lie to yourself about being in control.
Cocaine's not hip. It's hype. Anyone who tells you it's okay is a liar.
Cocaine, the big lie. Cocaine, the big lie.
It's yours?
No, I
Mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys was...
Closet of what?
Look at it.
Where did you get it?
Dad.
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents who use drugs have children who use drugs.
Is there anyone out there who still isn't clear about what doing drugs does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
I have taken drugs before, and I had a real good time. Didn't murder anybody, didn't rob anybody, didn't rape anybody, didn't beat anybody, didn't lose one fucking job, laughed my ass off, and went about my day. Now, where's my commercial? Shit, I'll be the guy holding that skillet in that commercial, man. That ain't a brain, that's breakfast. Let's eat. What have we been up, 5 days now? I'm fucking starving. I find that commercial a tad insulting to my intelligence. You know, the one, here's your brain. I've seen a lot of things on drugs, but I have never, ever, ever looked at an egg and thought it was a fucking brain, not once. I have seen UFOs split the sky like a sheet, but I have never looked at an egg and thought it was a fucking brain, not once. I have had 7 balls of light come off of a UFO, lead me onto their ship, explain to me telepathically that we are all one and there's no such thing as death. But I've never looked at an egg and thought it was a fucking brain. Now, maybe I wasn't getting good shit, but
From every mountain and valley the world over are flowers and plants of simple beauty. Some hold a natural wonder, chemicals that soothe pain and inspire euphoria. At times, they've been hailed as a gift of heaven, but in the last century, they've been condemned as a scourge of man. Once, marijuana, cocaine, opium, ecstasy, LSD, even heroin were perfectly legal. Today, they compel a war on drugs. Did these plants and drugs change? Or did we?
Drugs are menacing our society.
Marijuana has been an enemy of the state since the first federal law was enacted against it in 1937. Since that time, 20 million Americans have been arrested, convicted, and incarcerated for using the most popular drug in the world.
Your Honor, in this case, the state waives trial of the defendant, Ralph Wiley. It is convinced that he is hopelessly and incurably insane, a condition caused by the drug marijuana to which he was addicted.
The law is only one deterrent, and not that effective. The government relied on something else: education films.
This harmless-looking cigarette is cloaked in many innocent disguises. But light the match, inhale the smoke, and it becomes an invitation to your own murder.
They had to now control something that was growing all over the United States as a weed. So they relied mostly on words because they didn't have many other resources to devote to it. I think a lot of people have seen Reefer Madness.
That's better. That's more like it. I know you like that. Really, you will. Just take a puff.
Though marijuana is now a household name, there was a time when it was an obscure drug, used only by the fringes of society. That, some argue, is the reason why it was criminalized.
Drugs are illegal because they do cause problems. The ones that are illicit drugs, health problems, crime-related problems, violence-related problems. But it's also true that none of the drugs currently illegal became illegal before they were most closely associated with what were commonly regarded as deviant groups.
In more and more cases, drug abuse starts right here. Prescription drugs are perfectly legal. That makes them easy to find, easy to use. and extremely dangerous.
Even though people who sell one or two, that can cause a death.
Drug agents have seen an alarming increase in the number of Mainers taking pharmaceuticals to get high.
It crosses all socioeconomic barriers.
I'm News Center's Brian Yacono. I'll examine this growing trend and what's being done to deal with it, starting Thursday at 6 on News Center. The idea of a meth clinic coming to Warren and the way it was handled has people in town outraged. Brian Yacono, people in Warren blew off some steam tonight at a town meeting addressing that very issue. A local businessman who bought an old vacant school says he would lease the building to CRC Health of Philadelphia to run the methadone clinic. But townspeople say not so fast. Many of them say they don't want a clinic and they don't like the way the Board of Selectmen handled the sale of the school in the first place.
Herodotus records some of the earliest uses of cannabis by the Scythians. And what they did was they would build a big bonfire in the middle of the camp, and they would heap a bunch of marijuana on top of it, and then they would throw a tent over it, and they would all go under the tent and breathe the smoke. And that way they consumed it.
Next to opium, marijuana is one of the planet's oldest medicines.
Welcome back to Fox and Friends. Dave Briggs, he's Clayton Morse, she's Allison Camerata. We're going to head to Afghanistan this morning. One of the biggest obstacles in front of the U.S. troops there in Afghanistan is the opium trade. The Taliban is using it to intimidate the population.
Joining us from Helmand Province is Geraldo Rivera. Good morning to you, Geraldo. Tell us what you've seen during your days there in Afghanistan.
Hi, Allison, Dave, and Clayton. Yes, in some ways, the Marines' brilliantly executed invasion of Marja, this town in the middle of Helmand Province, was the easy part. The hard part now is governing this province, a province, as you suggest, that has become addicted to opium in many, many ways. That is the principal crop that is being grown here. The Taliban lend the farmers the money. They are indebted to the Taliban. They have to grow the opium. Now the Marines, in their success, are in a sense a victim of their success, because now the population is, they have these opium fields, and we are tolerating it. We are tolerating the cultivation of the opium because we know that if we were to destroy it now, the population would turn against the Marines, and it would be a real security risk.
Actually, they themselves admit that if drugs were smuggled past them, they wouldn't interfere. Why? That's another tough question. Now, what if Russia was to act selfishly and play in geopolitics, just like our opponents are used to doing? They got us involved in the war in Afghanistan and immediately began to provide help for those rebels, the Mujahideen. We could do the same now. We could support the rebels and fight against Americans. But it's not even in our people's minds. No one is going to do that. When I was there in 1989 and 1990, the production of drugs almost ceased, apart from in certain areas. Since then, it has increased by 44%. And all of the drug traffic goes through the city of Osh, where we want to establish our base, and Termes or other places. 90% of drugs from Afghanistan go to former Soviet republics. 80% of the world's drugs are produced in Afghanistan.
Ancient Chinese herbalists applied it to stomach pain, menstrual cramps, malaria, and consumption. According to Indian mythology, Shiva, the Hindu goddess of creation and destruction, endowed man with the plant for a joyful pastime. An apt legacy for the drug of the generation that preached free love, challenged authority, and was out to change the world.
Allegations of the U.S. government's involvement in the drug trade have often been labeled conspiracy theories, despite being reported by award-winning journalists and academics who investigated the claims, as well as former DEA, CIA, military, and police who witnessed, oversaw, or took part in the crimes.
Today, you're going to meet several people who are former employees of our United States government, people who have looked at this over years, who will say, whether it was a conspiracy or not, they don't want to talk about it. But did the CIA know the drugs were coming into the United States of America and help it get here? The answer to the question is yes.
Absolutely.
Does the CIA do this on a regular basis? The answer to the question is?
Absolutely. The CIA is the kingpin, the Don.
So you're saying that the CIA is the kingpin of the head of the United States Mafia?
I have...
The government's ability and willingness to spy on people globally was similarly considered a conspiracy theory, until Edward Snowden recently disclosed this violation to the world. also like current whistleblowers, including Snowden and Bradley Manning, who are humiliated by the press and, in Manning's case, tortured in a U.S. prison before being convicted of 19 charges. Courageous individuals who speak out about the U.S. government's role in smuggling drugs and supporting drug lords are largely ridiculed and ignored. This so-called conspiracy theory has been discussed and documented for decades, yet the phony drug war persists. In 1993, Robert Bonner, former head of the DEA, told CBS News the CIA imports drugs into the United States.
The head of the DEA at the time, Robert Bonner, said that a ton of pure cocaine worth hundreds of millions of dollars had been smuggled into the United States.
This is a story that has been told in bits and pieces over the last few years. This is an attempt to pull most of it together. We know we don't have the full story. We do, however, have some striking new revelations and insights of a concerted search by several United States intelligence agencies to perfect mind control. In 1953, at the height of the Cold War, President Eisenhower appointed Allen Dulles to be head of the CIA, the first peacetime intelligence agency in United States history. As this 1952 CIA document shows, the aim at that time was controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will. But it was a discovery here in Basel, Switzerland, at Sandoz Laboratories by Dr. Albert Hoffman, that led the intelligence agencies of America to believe that they had found the panacea. The discovery was lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD.
It was one of the first times that anybody had run into a powerful drug that was different than anything else that they knew anything about.
John Gittinger, recently retired chief psychologist for the CIA. This is the first time Gittinger has been interviewed publicly.
That, in effect, disable a whole city by putting a very small amount on a water supply. Yeah.
It would not be long before the CIA and other intelligence agencies discovered that LSD was not only powerful, but dangerous. A former CIA official who worked on these programs did not wish to be filmed or recorded. The statements he made to ABC consultant John Marks will be read by someone else. They have been corroborated by ABC News. He tells what happened to one co-worker when LSD was put into his coffee in this Washington office building. The LSD took hold and he ran to the street.
He sort of knew he had it, but he couldn't pull himself together and it got away from him. He reported afterwards that every automobile that came by was a terrible monster with fantastic eyes, out to get him personal. It was a real horror trip for him. It was hours of agony. It was like a dream that never stops with someone chasing you. It was awfully hard to persuade him that his friends were his friends at that point.
How about a positive LSD story? Wouldn't that be newsworthy just once? To base your decision on information rather than scare tactics and superstition and lies? I think it would be newsworthy. Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather.
And he blamed the CIA, saying the agency had joined the Venezuelan National Guard in drug smuggling.
Now, do you understand what you're saying? A ton of cocaine was smuggled into the United States of America by the Venezuelan National Guard? Well, in cooperation with the CIA?
That's exactly what appears to have happened.
Is there a point to my act? I would say there is. The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud. And it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride.
But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one.
Well, that was a pretty powerful clip right there. I mean, it's got a lot of history in there and enlightenment, and it also has, a double-edged view on the whole entire spectrum. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say you got a lot of the information right in there.
Yeah, you got history. The government would create propaganda films.
History, propaganda.
Paint perception to the public to be something as a personal problem in society right off the bat.
This is the thing right here. Why? I'll tell you what. So fluoride is known to be mandatory to put into water. I don't know if people
and also I was going
to
say that too. I know,
right? It's mandatory that they put it into your water. So whether you have city water or you buy drinking water or whatever, it's mandatory that they put a highly toxic corrosive into your water.
I wonder why.
Mandatory. Known fact, but they're going to protect you from all these other drugs, even though fluoride is known to cause cancer and all kinds of different weird stuff, highly corrosive, highly toxic.
So let's think of it like this, though. Throughout history, the government, they would create these films, right, which for a personal problem in society is what they would create, which is exactly what it is. It's a personal problem, but with the intentions of masking this newfound boogeyman fairy tale with the face of a monster called drugs and the new enemy of the state affecting everyone in its path. But the same person who wears the mask in costume promoting drugs are bad, say no to dope, is the same set of hands providing a land of soon-to-be criminals. And since the illegalization of cannabis and other natural plants in 1937, since then 20 million Americans have been held up against the law, in some form or another, and have either had some kind of criminal record held against them. And this is now in our minds. This is the law. This is like what we know. To say anything different would be completely contradicting yourself. Think of it like this. Imagine if they legalized marijuana tomorrow, right, nationwide. I would, look at every cop as a ridiculous human being, because what is the difference between today and tomorrow? Oh, so now it's all of a sudden legal. That doesn't make any sense. All right? Now, are you with me on this?
Yeah, of course. This comes up to that whole sovereign.
It sounds like a money scheme, not a goal against streets and people clean. So then all of a sudden visual ads and radio commercials.
It's all that sovereign citizen debate. Common law.
So,
common law.
Just like last week.
Obviously, it's common sense that I don't go around shooting people and killing them.
Sounds good to me. But I can go out there and have a little bit of good, pleasurable time as long as it doesn't affect anybody in a harmful way. So then think of it like this, too. A good point to bring up in this is when I was a kid, my grandmother would say this. When I was a kid, we didn't have drugs, and we didn't even know what drugs were. And I was like, well, Graham, come talk to me, But then it kind of dawned on me, I was like, maybe this was just a subconscious thought planted into the heads of every American to eventually sprout like seeds to be the thoughts and actions of their own. You know what I'm saying? There are some things that can...
Well, the drugs at that time were on the fringes of society. So that means lower-class people. People with less money than that. They don't have the money to entertain themselves. So obviously prostitution, drugs, all these outskirts of society becomes rampant on the outskirts of society.
Sounds like it's not really a part of their society.
Now it sounds like it's pretty rampant, right? Sounds like a classism type warfare that's happening. Obviously, we are on the fringes of society while we still exist in society.
So you mean to tell me every single human being now that does it, okay, is on the fringe of society. You're now a bad person, okay?
Exactly.
You know?
Well, what happens when you get caught by the law?
You're
gone. You're in the prison system. And think about this. We're a free country, right?
Yeah. Well,
where's the buzzer? Where's the buzzer?
Some things.
Wrong. We have the largest prison population in the world. We have enough prisoners to fill third world countries.
I know. More
in America.
We have more people in prison today than we do in any other single country in the world. Now, maybe the monster in our heads is not real, and maybe they created one thing to make us think one way, while also instigating your thoughts after the fact, setting you down the path before you, like a rat in a cage, but making you feel like you came up with the thought yourself on your own. But you didn't. You're just fulfilling the destination laid out before you, created by your killer. I mean, I'm telling you, we're talking about people that have created the think tank and have created all these things to already put a game in front of you, like a game of chess. It's all about preparation and predictions. You control the fate, yet fate was the creator, you know? And in 1971, President Richard Nixon declared an all-out war on drugs, and 35 years later, we have had over 1 million nonviolent drug offenders living behind bars. Now, this is the crazy part. You still there, Crow?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Now, think about the rights in our past shows, and think about what they're saying, okay? We don't have the right to control our own lives and dictate ourselves. We have to have the state come in and tell us what we can and cannot do. Why? Okay, so they said health problems. Well, that's a personal problem, and it sounds a lot like cigarettes and booze. Okay? You know, we know about Fukushima, but if you want to keep going eating sushi and you end up with cancer tomorrow, well, you know what? I hope you enjoyed your sushi. You know what I'm saying? But another part is, how do people feel that they have the right to tell other people that they don't have the right to do what their rights able them to have the right to do in the first place? I mean, this is ridiculous. You know, that's like a big major key factor that I don't ever really hear any people as Americans stand up for in a mass. If we're a society and the majority rules, right? You know, I mean, I'm not saying let's go ahead.
Well, you know what? The pun that, or the irony of the Wizard of Oz, right? Think about this, with the whole drug concept, right? So they get to the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, this little feeble man, obviously, ruling everything behind the curtain of this fearful, like, mystical, god-like being that people see, the Wizard of Oz thing. So he comes out, and the lion has no courage, the Tin Man has no heart, and the Scarecrow has no brain. Well, what do these people represent? Well, the lion represents the military with no heart. The Tin Man represents the iron workers or auto workers at the time.
Well, no, because the Tin Man has the lion has no courage.
No courage. With no heart, no courage. You know what I mean? But, yeah, the Tin Man has no heart, right?
I thought he doesn't have, I thought the Tin Man doesn't have a heart. Yeah. Oh, we're getting way off topic now. So basically, I see what you're saying. There's metaphors behind it.
Yeah, there's metaphors behind it there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So no brain with the Scarecrow. So the farmers, basically, right? The auto workers for the Tin Man. And it's supposed to represent all that. And then they have the poppy scene in there where the witch comes down and she says they'll sleep, you know? And they fall asleep in the big poppy fields.
Yeah.
So obviously we're over in Afghanistan, largest supplier of heroin, poppy, heroin, Wizard of Oz. I mean, there's a lot of parallels going on here.
There is. I got people talking to me. You know, you're absolutely right, man. You know, when you sit there, let's think of it like this, though. You know, when you break up Wizard of Oz, right, it's all about control of everything around you, from every mountain and valley to the world over to these natural plants that have become banned because of their natural beauty and chemicals that have a mysterious effect of enlightenment and euphoria. And many tribes and shamans and other religious groups have used these plants for remedy. But in 1937, the first federal law was set in motion, and all you finely tuned, indoctrinated shells of men have been repeating the examples made out of the last free-willed freedom fighter that was simply exercising his rights, but clearly breaking the law because they said so, and we said so, so there it is. Well, it's a good thing it was a choice made by the people and not by the Supreme Courts. Well, wait a minute. Yeah. I guess it was, wasn't it, by the Supreme Court? So it just goes to show that the people are not standing up for their rights today. You know, we need to go ahead and kind of have some kind of revolution.
Well, I mean, they look at all the devastating effects of drugs. I mean, drugs can be
That's
devastating.
all they're promoting, right? You know?
Yeah,
I say
obviously.
this is not necessarily a war on drugs. It's a war on your personal freedom, mental beliefs, personal evolution.
Look at what you got to go through when you do get drugs. When you get drugs, you're already ashamed that you're on drugs. So you have the shame and the guilt of drugs, so you do more drugs to cover the shame and guilt of doing drugs. And then it becomes just like lies and all dude, you end up
people sit there and say crack cocaine is very addicting. It is very addicting. In fact, it actually ruined my entire family. So when I sit there and say, yeah, go smoke some crack, no, I wouldn't, okay? And I wouldn't, think it's the best thing in the world. But I do know that through personal preferences and through people that I know in my life, when you unconditionally love somebody, you might not like what they do, but you're still going to love them unconditionally, and you're going to hope the best for them and try to understand it and not brush it aside like there's some kind of inbred retard you stick in your basement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that, we brush it off and classify it as like a crime instead of an illness that has been created by our own government, provided by our own government, okay? Because let's think about what we heard there, okay? We heard about the CIA feeding, okay, the streets already. We heard about already from the beginning all the propaganda about drugs. My grandmother was old enough to tell me that she didn't even know anything about drugs, and her grandmother, okay, and then the older it got. It's almost as if they had like this complete way of taking everything around the world, right, and basically completely monopolizing it, and the way I look at it is if you kind of look at the way that they kind of do it, it's like a sense of basically monopolizing it and taxing you or putting a patent law on it. It's like a patent law on plants and drugs. Because what do they do with these drugs? They take them, break them down, turn them into medicines, right?
Well, that's what all these plant substances were made for in the first place.
Yep, and what have they been trying to do with THC forever?
Turn it into a pill.
Synthesize
that
it.
They can sell.
Yep. And they're doing the same thing with acid and mushrooms and all these hallucinogenics.
Oh,
and they're even introducing...
If they could do it with mushrooms, they would.
No, they are. Did you know that they're introducing small amounts of psilocybin to psychiatric patients and stuff?
Yeah, I did hear
I saw
something about that.
I'm not even joking. It's the truth.
No shit.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy stuff like that. I mean...
There
you go.
I think it's like an antidepressant, actually.
Yeah,
and
because it goes with the natural brain functions.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they were saying.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It does. It totally makes sense.
Well, I mean, when you can go with the philosophy that obviously consciousness creates everything.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. I look at it like this. So they sit there and said this, too. That it was used more by the fringes of society and that drugs are illegal because they cause problems like health problems, crime problems, and violence. And if you look at the mob, they used to sell, or shall I say the mafia, sold cigarettes and beer and booze outside moving trucks and back alleys in the cities. And because the government wanted their hands in all the profits. Well, because they couldn't beat them, they basically just joined them, And so they created drug cartels and smugglers and all other great stuff. And I believe that a lot of those people were mostly bankers, too, because they invested their money wisely. But in the process, you've got not only the shark, but its hunter, which is the DEA, and then because they say drugs were tied in with deviant groups, we had to stop this. And when you start looking at they were against the law is what caused the fluctuation of crime. You know, maybe because they were against the law in the first place is what caused the fluctuation of crime. You know, what do you think about that? Because that's a pretty
I think that's what you're trying to get to right there.
Topic out there.
At one time, they weren't against the law, so obviously there were no criminals. I think that was the whole outbreak of LSD, was to see how many criminals you could create. It's like
well, did you hear them trying to control you?
Book.
That's what they were using it for, Central Intelligence, using it to experiment on mind control.
Well, remember 1984?
Yeah.
They created the terrorists, didn't they not?
Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah, they created the problem, and they created the terrorists to weed out who would be the dissidents of their society, and then fix the problem.
Exactly.
There you go. What do you think
now,
they
look
tried
at this.
to
They
do
say
back
this
in
too.
the
So crime is based off all these drugs, like marijuana. I would like to defend marijuana mostly, okay? You know, in regards to just the fact that it's a plant that grows in a backyard, and I don't understand why it should be illegal, you know? Let me tell you something about the cocoa plant, okay? The cocoa plant is completely harmless to you and non-addicting. It's the moment that it enters man's hand and gets broke down into the synthetic form of cocaine is when it is harmful and addicting to you. And do your research. Find that out, okay? That's some good, interesting information, isn't it? So on Friday night, though, someone's drinking, causing a fight, possibly driving into people. But because of us, the people, they legalized alcohol back in the day to the prohibition, but yet enough people are smoking weed that clearly we have a society that likes to smoke pot just as much as people that like to smoke cigarettes and like to drink beer and like to go out and maybe have some wine. You know, it's not necessarily, I look at it as like, well, I'd say you have to try it out sometime. You know, it might not be for you or maybe it is. But, again, it's a personal health problem. And, you know, when I look at it, crime increase in nonviolence-related incidences, drugs are illegal, and anyone who does them is, you know, basically scum of the earth. This is the outlook of people on this stuff, you know, and I say that anybody that looks like that is a hypocrite when you're sucking down Advil or aspirins or a tall coffee and some NyQuil, you know, and saying that you're not a drug addict. You know, I believe that in life, all things can add up to an addiction or a drug in some form, you know. What is really a drug? It's just a word. You know what I mean?
Well, I'd say, you know, obviously you go through worse things to get worse drugs, right?
What happened to medicine?
Well, you know, some people abuse things, and that's where the real problems lie.
Let's say this right here, okay? They say that they first initiated the law because they said that marijuana made people insane, okay? It made people insane. But no one's ever died from marijuana, ever.
To them, think about it. I mean,
hold on, so
marijuana,
people are going insane, though. How
marijuana
come people
makes you
in
think,
Colorado and Washington...
And when they don't want people to think, obviously, they're going to say that you're crazy.
You know?
Especially when they don't like the way
what happens,
you
right?
think. Look at what they did to Socrates.
Go look up on the YouTube and type in sovereign citizens and just see what happens in court. Sovereign citizens in court. And see what the response is of everybody else, but then listen to what this guy says. They say he's crazy. Well, you'll probably think he's crazy if you didn't know anything about what he was talking about. But on this show, you know now. But anyway, like you sit there and think about, let's talk about drugs and you think about, you know, guns and automobiles, okay? You know, these things are not what kills people. People kill themselves with these things. People are the ones that kill people. You know, it has nothing to do with the devices. And if you do some drugs and kill someone, it's because you yourself was not mentally strong enough to handle what it was that you took. Does it make it so that everyone else should suffer?
There's people that have gone off the road and hit people and crashed into them and killed people while they fell asleep at the wheel.
Drinking, yep.
No,
but
just
then
fell
they went
asleep
out,
at
you
the
know,
wheel.
and they regretted it.
Not
but
even
then,
just fell
you know,
asleep, texting. I mean, you got to think.
let's say you go ahead and drive off the road and don't kill nobody. All right, you drink and you pass out.
Obvious in this.
Let's say this right here. Let's say you're drinking, driving home at night, and you drive off the road, and you get in a car accident, right? Okay?
Yeah.
Are you going to never drink again? Nobody got hurt.
You don't know that. You don't know. It could happen.
You know what? I have a friend that did do that.
There
and
are people that did that, killed somebody, never drank again.
Yeah. If you kill somebody, that's a different story now. We're talking about a life-altering experience here.
Well, yeah.
You know? I mean, we're talking about some really crazy stuff. You know? But let's think about it. So we're all corporate members here, right, conducting our business in our corporate American world. Well, I say mind your own business. I say people just need to mind their own business, look at your rights, you know, take in your own P's and Q's, you know. You sit there and look at, you put all these laws up, oh, guns need to be taken away, legalize drugs, you know, rape, murder, all these things are illegal, but yet it happens every day. It's still a popular news revenue today as we speak. They're talking about rape and murder every day.
Newsflash.
Newsflash. Yeah.
Bombs are illegal.
Stopped, but I
Bombs
tell you,
are illegal.
What's that?
I said a bomb is illegal.
A bomb is illegal. But back in the day, you used to be able to get whatever kind of machinery you wanted.
I just want people to know that. You know, bombs are illegal. And yet, oh no, it's a bomb that went off. Yeah. I wonder how that happened. You're telling me that guy broke the law? Yeah. Still there. Crack's illegal. Bombs are illegal. Next thing you know, they're going to make guns illegal. Then only people that break the law have the things that they need to break the law with. It's like crazy.
The ones that are breaking the law,
Nobody's held
obviously.
any kind of personal responsibility
But man,
for anything.
when the people are not in charge, the ones that are in charge are not looking out for your best interest. They're looking out for world domination and control. And so if you're going to hand over your guns to them, all right, then they're going to come and basically control and rule your life, all right? And you're not going to be able to defend yourself or anybody. Don't ever give up your guns. Never, all right? And I'd say just don't even give up your rights. I'd say, you know, start looking at yourself as a mental human being and what you're capable of. I believe that, you know, what did I say? When you become a man is when your friends start killing themselves. And you start becoming... It is terrible, but it's the truth. You start, you know, when, you know, my friends were killing themselves when I was 12, 13, 15 years old, or even 17, you know. And then it was like, what, 19, 20 years old, 22? That's when they started dying? Yeah. And then that's when you start waking up. But basically, so, you know, so the CIA is behind all the corruption, you know, obviously. And so Mr. Bush, and we know has direct ties with being head of the CIA, and he ran for president, and he also had CIA members with him supporting his campaigns when he was running. How sweet. And the CIA is right hand in hand with the drug cartels and drug smugglers all across the world. And rumor has it that Knights Templar is the new Skull and Bones or whatever today. This is what I heard. And the Bonesmen meetings are much like the old Nazi party meetings. And rumor has it that Prescott Bush, father of Bush Sr., and grandfather to George W., groomed them for the future of where they are today in complete secrecy. So the same people who create the drugs are the same people who fight it. Sounds like a conspiracy to me. And same thing with the war on terror. You got a country that thrives off a substance like opium, but they don't stop it. They just tie forces together. You got the CIA and drug cartels, and then you got the counteracting agency, which is the DEA. So they got everyone fighting a war where everyone is fighting themselves. This is genius. And
it's
all
perfect.
over what?
It never ends,
choice?
and you always know the winner and the outcome, so you can play the odds at the bank.
Always. What does crime
Perfect.
equal? What does crime equal? Yeah.
Crime equals profits.
Money. You got it, brother. And here's a good question for the old battered brain. How can a crime go beyond one affecting another individual, which in a legalese terminology would be a victim? To be a victim is someone who has been affected by someone in many negative ways. Rape, murder, manipulation, ignorance. And again, how can a crime go beyond one affecting another individually if it can't hurt, but yet the courts label this a victimless crime? How does this make any sense? A victimless crime? So a crime against yourself?
Yeah. That they're going to punish you for.
That you're going to get punished for, taxed, thrown in jail, take our money, then feed them.
Oh, there's a
victim,
and it's going to be yourself. And
yep.
It's not
and you sit there and say, oh, they're all guilty innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, you ever been to jail recently just for, allegation? Go fucking see what the hell you're going to eat there. Good times, buddy. You better make sure they read you your rights, because if they don't, you might get away. Now, but thanks to a democracy, the majority rule over the laws of the land that subtract human rights individually. Wow! Is this all starting to come together for you guys? Holy shnikes! And what about the war on drugs today? 1971 was declared an all-out war on drugs. Has it stopped? Has it stopped?
No.
Has it stopped? It's 2014, 1971, 2014. Sounds to me like through all those...
the slavery hasn't stopped, and suppression, and we haven't even stopped fighting. We haven't even stopped fighting the Nazis yet.
I wonder where all this stuff is coming from. This is a show on a bunch of stuff. We're just talking about drugs here. We got a whole bunch of things. You got show 2. We discussed hallucinogens and how they are tools, not drugs. This is what I said in that show, right? And spiritual tools of enlightenment. And why would these be considered illegal drugs now? Suppressed from society. When majority say it's a religious experience where others say it's crazy and freaky and never again will they ever do it. Well, good for you and good for you. And great, we have a neutral equal balance. Awesome. And it's not about the fact of war on drugs. It's why some drugs are legal and some illegal. It's a painted, hypocritical perception to drugs in the first place. So as long as it's prescribed, it's okay. Well, we see what that has done to our nation.
There was professionals that got all messed up on that before you. They know all about it. You're set.
Yep. And now look what we got today. We got a nation There's heroin kids. We got kids that are basically hooked up on kids. So basically, we can't give a black tar heroin run the street.
The other day
so what we're going to do is we're going to make
a 14-year-old kid that tried to pose as like a heroin junkie.
This is what I see the pill companies did. This is what they did. Because they can't give away black tar heroin, they just made it into a pill. It was like, here you guys go. Finally. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Oh, I saw a 13 or 14-year-old kid that played some awesome music that dressed up like a heroin junkie. That was like the style, man.
For Halloween?
Yeah. No,
oh my God.
You're the one that sent me the video. The kid was bombing, too. He played some nasty stuff.
Oh, man, it was a long
He
time
just
ago.
had this whole, like, heroin addicted
How come
style.
I always send you something and you're
know.
like, dude, you're the guy who's not into it. I like totally don't remember. You know the stuff I look at it back? All right. Now, the guy who invented ADHD, you guys got to write this down or at least keep it in the back of your mind. Right before he died, he said it was bullshit, okay? It was a hoax. They created it to create addicts and revenue for the drug companies and the FDA, all right? And basically create kids and get them all hooked up and all mentally disturbed even further. And here's another awesome thing. Now, Skull and Bones founder, 1832 at Yale, William Huntington Russell, founded the tomb at Skull and Bones, okay? He went to Germany and befriended someone from the Illuminati in Bavarian, Adams White House, I believe. And now consider this amazing fact. In regards to the Skull and Bones, Prescott Bush, Bush Sr., and Bush W. also consider now into this whole entire pool soup of shit. We got the CIA and the drug war fraud, or the war on fraud. William Huntington Russell, his family has ties with the biggest distribution of opium and smuggling and funded the creation of the tomb with the funds of smuggling opium across the world. And just a little bit more coincidental information about the epidemic of the out-of-control war on drugs that just can't seem to be stopped. we basically stop every natural plant on Earth that has these chemicals, but then we take these chemicals and make drugs out of them, and then we prescribe them and fill the streets with man-made pills to create a society of zombie-like drug addicts. But then because the addictions are so high, we create another drug called methadone to weed you off the legal drugs to begin with, because the risks of death quitting cold turkey are so high. What a scam!
Yeah.
Sounds like someone discovered something long before we did, monopolized it, made everyone a criminal before they even tried it, or at least this is the thought process we have been indoctrinated with. So everyone is a criminal for money, and this is the assurance of a loophole of copyright laws on God's natural plants of medicine.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got addicted to that prescription drug? Well, you should have controlled yourself. Now
Here's
you're
another
under
one
arrest.
to get you off that one, you little bitch.
Yeah. First, you're going to go to
I'm
jail.
sorry, I must have given you too much.
Yeah, that prescription and that broken leg you had, yeah, you're going to jail because of that.
That's what the war on drugs is, though. It's a patent law with
Now
another
you're
name
a criminal.
on it. And
Now we're going to
let's
come
take
and
a
get
small
your gun.
break. We're going to take a small break real quick. The biggest lie I've ever told. We'll be back with more Subliminal Sanity and pressing the issue. Thank you for listening to Subliminal Sanity.
They're expressing their feelings, but it's more like they're trying to get a message out, and the message is not love. It's like revenge or hate. It used to be love, and everyone can relate to love.
can't be made.
That was the biggest lie I've ever told. And now for pressing the issue. Pressing the issue.
Recovering addict Jordan described the euphoric feeling after the first time he used heroin.
No pain. We get in fights and you wouldn't feel anything, and back then it was just a cool thing to do. It was like, whoa, what have I been missing?
Jordan became addicted to prescription painkillers in high school. He then moved to smoking heroin, and at age 19, he started shooting up.
From my neck, head, toes, legs, I've shot up every vein there is to shoot on my body.
The rise in prescription drug abuse has been linked to an increase in the use of heroin here in the U.S. The problem transcends America's urban centers and has hit affluent suburbs like here in Orange County, California. In the scenic town of Newport Beach, police say that half of their narcotics arrests this year involve heroin. They give us a close-up look of some of the black tar they took from a suspected seller.
It cuts across all income levels and all racial lines with a slight focus towards the younger generation. You know, this really used to be an urban problem, and because of that addiction level and
the rise in prescription drug abuse,
because of the availability,
was devoted to the plague of drug addiction.
It's really cut into every community nationwide.
In Vermont, this year's State of the State address,
in every corner of our state, heroin and opiate drug addiction
remain cheap as production of opium has skyrocketed in places like Afghanistan and Mexico. Other narcotics are still more popular than heroin in the U.S. But as people transition from pills to harder street drugs, the threat remains in even the most unexpected places. The rise in prescription drug abuse
is really because of the availability.
But as people transition from pills to harder street drugs,
because of the availability cut into every community nationwide,
was devoted to the plague of drug addiction.
Let's start with some tough love, all right? Ready for this? Here goes. You two suck at peddling meth.
Oh, tight, yeah. Oh, put me on your magical boat, man. Sail me down your chocolatey river of meth.
Walter White.
Yeah, Mr. White. Yeah, science. Meth.
Jesse, you asked me if I was in the meth business or the money business. Neither. I'm in the empire business. Say my name.
Meth!
Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
Hey, it's Sleeping Beauty.
Didn't sleep a wink.
I know, we've been waiting for you. Have the chess set already?
He cheats.
Hello, Honest Abe.
Whatever.
We just haven't played for so long.
I know, I just got all this stress at work.
It's cool, it happens to a lot of people.
Really?
Absolutely. More than half of adults report experiencing some kind of insomnia at least a few nights a week.
We just want you back. We just want you back. We just want you back. Oh, we've been waiting for you.
Thanks, guys.
When you can't sleep, you can't dream. That's why there's Roserum, the first and only prescription sleep aid that in clinical studies shows no potential for abuse or dependence. Take it when you need it. Stop when you don't. Your doctor can explain why Roserum is so different. Don't take Roserum if you're taking Luvox, fluvoxamine, or have severe liver problems. Avoid taking it with alcohol. Don't drive or operate machinery until you know how you'll react to Roserum. Roserum may affect some hormones. Consult your doctor about how this may affect you, or if your insomnia doesn't improve. Take Roserum right before bed. Side effects may include drowsiness, fatigue, and dizziness.
Just talk to your doctor.
Today, row heroin like heroin, but with less AIDS.
And welcome back to Hannity. Now, despite ruthless efforts by the administration to cover up the Fast and Furious gun-running scandal, which put an estimated 2,000 guns in the hands of murderers and kidnappers and criminals and drug dealers.
Meanwhile, states are doing their part to fight against NSA surveillance. In Maryland, the home of the NSA, a group of state congressmen introduced a bill that would literally pull the plug on government spying. They would do this by cutting off water, electricity, and other support to the federal agency. It's called the Fourth Amendment Protection Act, and supporters say the bill is aimed at blocking the NSA from monitoring and tracking citizens in the state. Here's the bill that prohibits state offices and employees from engaging in certain activities relating to the collection of certain electronic data or metadata of a person. And it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop in Maryland. There's legislation just like this in the works in other states like Washington, Utah, and Missouri.
Depression is a serious medical condition that can take so much out of you. I feel like I have to wind myself up just to get out of bed. Then, well, I have to keep winding myself up to deal with the sadness, the loss of interest, the trouble concentrating, lack of energy.
Prestique is a prescription antidepressant. Talk to your doctor about Prestique and I'm sure he'll prescribe it. You need drugs to be happy. You're so high. Don't worry about getting any new hobbies or friends. You need a prescription antidepressant. Don't worry about your diet or exercise. You just need to be happy with the pill. Don't worry about a thing. We have drugs for your kids, too. Yay. ADD, ADHD, whatever. We have pills for the side effects, too.
Time Warner Cable makes AMC more alive.
Mom, don't feed the walker.
Because we let you stream your favorites, like The Walking Dead. Like The Walking Dead. In any room?
We just had those painted, Daryl.
I'm sorry. On any screen.
They're in this prison and they're...
Clean this up.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been using drugs pretty much non-stop, on and off, just going in and out of detox for the last 3 years, and I've got to stop, and I'm hoping that this can help me stop.
NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching fever. Hurry up and help Mom feel better fast medicine.
Heroin, cocaine. But I am going to put together another shot. So, I know, if somebody watches this a year or two down the line, at this point, they're already saying, oh, man, I don't want to watch somebody shoot up front. And I'm hoping, like, by the end of this, I'm a totally different person.
Lunesta can help you get there, like it has for so many people before. When taking Lunesta, don't drive or operate machinery until you feel fully awake. Walking, eating, driving, or engaging in other activities while asleep without remembering it the next day have been reported. Abnormal behaviors may include aggressiveness, agitation, hallucinations, or confusion. In depressed patients, worsening of depression, including risk of suicide, may occur. Alcohol may increase these risks. Allergic reactions such as tongue or throat swelling occur rarely and may be fatal. Side effects may include unpleasant taste, headache, dizziness, and morning drowsiness. Ask your doctor if Lunesta is right for you. Then get Lunesta.
Not totally different, but substantially different. I'm really tired of being a junkie. I thought I was done with this like 7 years ago, 6 years ago. Here's the heroin, here's the coke, and I'm
like a walking dead.
Drug addicted, heroin and cocaine addicted, cigarette smoking,
Heisenberg. But as people transition from pills to harder street drugs,
because of the availability cut into every community nationwide,
was devoted to the plague of drug addiction,
You can't handle the truth!
All right, what a crazy press in the issue clip. I don't think we have Kevin Blanche on for this week, but what I do know is that we're at 1,969 days. Fukushima meltdown, 3/11. You still there, Crowley?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Beautiful. What did you think of that press in the issue clip?
Oh, it was great. It was great.
I laughed during the Rosarium commercial. It was hilarious. But it totally is to go back to sleep, you know. These are commercials we force on you. These are the drugs that are legal. Go ask your doctor about them. Here's our side effects that are worse than your initial problem. It's beautiful. Now, we got Fred Marsico who wants to get on. But before we have him on and go ahead and discuss a brief part of history right off the bat, we're going to go back into this. We're going to go right back into this clip here. But before we do, here's where do these thoughts come from? You know, who sets the foundations of principles today? And where do we get it from? Laws and action, morals, what's right, what's wrong. We live in a world of design thought, you know, and your thoughts ain't really yours. They're someone else's, regurgitated back and forth, back and forth. Well, where does this information come from? Whether you believe it or not, it is the truth among most around you, serving your table, cashing you out, asking you, is that all? Assuming more money will come out of your pocket. The cop that pulls you over, the guy flying your plane, they all live here too, following our system of things. Well, let's see where all of this judgment comes from before we point fingers so quickly, so angersome to the next pot-smoking junkie. Where do our nest of thoughts form itself before we escape into the world to form our lives from what we see? If you could please play clip 2, Tiffany, Dr. Eugees, it would be an honor. Clip 2.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold. I remember saying something like, I feel you're lightheaded. Oh, you should drive. Suddenly, there was a terrible roar all around us, and the sky was full of what looked like huge bats, all swooping and screeching and all swooping. Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in?
Edward George Ruddy died today. Edward George Ruddy was the chairman of the board of the Union Broadcasting System, and he died at 11 o'clock this morning of a heart condition, and woe is us. We're in a lot of trouble.
A rich little man with white hair died. What has that got to do with the price of rice, right? And why is that woe to us? Because you people and 62 million other Americans are listening to me right now. Because less than 3% of you people read books.
The whole
Because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube.
The tendency is to push it as far as
this tube is the gospel, the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome goddamn force in the whole godless world. And woe is us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. And that's why woe is us that Edward George Ruddy died. Because this company is now in the hands of CCA, the Communication Corporation of America. There's a new chairman of the board, a man called Frank Hackett, sitting in Mr. Ruddy's office on the 20th floor. And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this network?
Is everybody in?
No, you listen to me. Listen to me. Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business.
Is everybody in?
So if you want the truth, you can't handle the truth. So if you want the truth, go to God. Go to your guru. Go to yourself. Because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth. But man, you're never going to get any truth from us. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell. We'll tell you that Kojak always gets the killer and that nobody ever gets cancer in Archie Bunker's house. And no matter how much trouble the hero is in, don't worry. Just look at your watch. At the end of the hour, he's going to win. We'll tell you any shit you want to hear. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. None of it is true.
George Bush says we are losing the war on drugs. You know what that implies? There's a war being fought, and people on drugs are winning it.
We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true.
They fight the war on drugs like the colonials fought the Indians, right? They're walking in a straight line in red coats. Drug users are like Indians. They're up in the trees going, are they fighting us? We're not even in that fucking field. I guess we're winning by default. No combat, we're ahead. Hey, I don't get it because alcohol and cigarettes are drugs. So the war is definitely taking a ceasefire here, hasn't it?
You believe in drugs, Mr. Morrison?
I believe in excess.
What about alcohol? Is that considered part of the shame and wisdom?
The American way. You know that we spend more money every year on tobacco and alcohol than we do on education?
Alcohol and cigarettes kills more people than crack, coke, and heroin combined. You never see a positive drug story on the news, do you? No. Always negative. News is supposed to be objective, isn't it? It's supposed to be the news, but every drug story is negative. Well, hold it. I've had some killer times on drugs.
You know that we spend more money every year on tobacco and alcohol than we do on education?
I'm not promoting it, but I'm not denying it. Let's hear the whole story. Same LSD story every time. Young man on acid thought he could fly, jumped out of a building. What a tragedy. What a dick.
Hi folks, this is Alan Watt. Tonight I'm bowing to a little bit of pressure. I don't normally bow to any kind of pressure, but this will tie in with some of the talks I've given in the past, and it's about the culture creation industry, how ideas are downloaded into people's minds via fiction primarily, using high drama with emotion plus crisis, the situation in a movie and drama, the tremendous method of getting points across. It's almost like coupling an idea with the drama, and it's downloaded like a virus into your subconscious, and you're being programmed, and it's called predictive programming, and it's called predictive programming, and it's called predictive programming.
This is drugs.
Cocaine, the big lie. Call 1-800-662-HELP.
Doing drugs is like being on top of the world. Everyone says so. Everyone seems to be having one dandy old time. Hey, it's part of growing up. Or is it? Just think about this. Before you go and do something you've never done before, you just better know what you're jumping into.
When she was 6, after a few scrapes and tumbles, her dad taught her how to ride a two-wheeler. When she was 9, he helped her build a telescope that could see the moons of Jupiter. When she was 14, after a lot of her mom finally taught her how to hit a wicked two-handed backhand. All through her growing up, Susie's parents taught her well. Her growing up, Susie's parents taught her well. But for all their love and attention, there was one lesson left untaught. Susie's parents never taught her about drugs.
That's what I hate about the war on drugs. I'll be honest with you. It's what I can't stand is all day long we see those commercials. Here's your brain on drugs. Just say no. Why do you think they call it dope? And then the next commercial is this bud's for you. Come on, everybody. Let's be hypocritical bastards. It's okay to drink your drug. We meant those other drugs. Those untaxed drugs. Not promoting the use of drugs. I'm just telling you, I've had good times on them. That's the truth. I've also had bad times on them too, okay? But I've had good and bad relationships, and I'm not giving up pussy. Once again, I recommend a healthy dose of psilocybin mushrooms. Not all drugs are good now. Okay? Some of them are great. You've got to know your way around them, is all. I've had good times on drugs. I've had bad times on drugs, too. I mean, shit. Look at this haircut. See, I think drugs have done some good things for us. I really do. And if you don't believe drugs have done good things for us, do me a favor. Go home tonight, take all your albums, all your tapes, and all your CDs and burn them. Because you know what? The musicians who made all that great music that's enhanced your lives throughout the years, real fucking high on drugs. Today, young men on acid realize that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is only a dream and we're the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather. It's not a war on drugs, it's a war on personal freedom is what it is, okay? Keep that in mind at all times. Thank you.
Wow, clip 2, Dr. UG's. Whew.
Yeah.
Everybody still in?
Yeah, still here, bud. Still here.
What'd you think, bro?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I loved it too. You know, you got TV propaganda.
So what is it? Yeah, it's propaganda. So obviously it has nothing to do with the fact that drugs are unsafe for you. It's just the fact that they want to suppress your mental capabilities.
Well, let's put it in this, in the further depth of what you heard. Some of what you heard, and I'm sure it triggered memories immediately to a time and place of where you knew exactly what you were listening to, where some were like, what the hell was I listening to? You know, and some were like, man, this is cool as the movies, the clips came from, you know, whether they were real or scripted, it related to you in many ways in some way. It became real because it relates to your human nature. And then judgment comes in. See, corporate-minded nature, the machine of man, after hearing that, do you even know what you know to be true or fabricated? You know, what the hell? You know, you got the power of television is really what it boils down to. And so, I mean, you heard Jim Morrison chugging whiskey while Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, famous scene filling the void in the background. I'm sure people knew that, of the Fear and Loathing. That's a very famous scene. And if anybody knows that movie, that brought them to that, you know. So here we are. We have this war on drugs, but yet we have a TV show or movie that's basically promoting it. We've got drugs all around us, subconsciously, subliminally being put into us, but yet we got the arm of the law right there, too, as well. And, yeah, we got Fred Marsico.
Well, it's the Pandora's box situation.
Yeah, yeah.
So they give you the box if they don't open it. Well, obviously,
and, you know, the whole thing is like, yeah, we can go ahead and make history of the war on drugs and the big war on drugs, but the war on drugs is here today, still today. And it's affecting us as people, and it seems to be like some kind of it's like an imaginary being. You know, it doesn't exist. You know, and the war is within ourselves now. And it's like you can sit there and try to stop it, but then yet you got these TV shows that promote it everywhere you go, whether it be a vaccination or an Advil or Breaking Bad, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you say?
I concur.
And then you got that guy that came in, he's slamming in the conversation, screaming about a man that died, Edward George Ruddy. He died, the chairman of the board of the Union Broadcasting Systems. Because the majority of man only watches TV. And if it is not on if it's not on, basically most of society doesn't know the difference between truth, you know, or bullshit. And then the Communication Corporations of America, the CCA, controls the whole source of entertainment today, all 6, you know, industries. And that's exactly what it is. It's just entertainment. You know, and after hearing that, I won't be surprised if what you know is what you're questioning beyond anything else. And that's okay, because to me, it's the only thing that makes sense at this point.
Well, you got to question what you know and understand yourself.
Today. I mean, we can sit there and do research on all the history, and you can go ahead and listen to somebody else's show on the war on drugs, but let's talk about not currently just, you know, the depth of the CIA and all these things and where it come from. Let's talk about the drugs that's here in America currently today, you know. I think that that's a very big thing, you know. If they're sitting there trying to have all this enforcements to stop drugs, but then yet we have admittance and proof that the CIA is smuggling drugs in. We have our troops over in Afghanistan from the beginning, okay? Why? Immediately establish dominance and then start conquering over the poppy fields and basically guarding them for them. What does that sound like to you?
This is pretty much why a lot of people have tried to invade Afghanistan. A lot of ancient cultures were after these drugs. And drugs, hey, you ever see the movie Dune?
Doomed?
No, Dune.
No.
Yeah, well, in Dune, it's about this desert planet, right? And these people come and they trade this spice that comes from the planet. It's like a drug, right?
Yeah.
Well, they get to this planet, and this planet's full of Arab-like people, just coincidentally, and that whoever controls the spice controls the world, controls the universes.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting. Yeah. Dune.
If anybody does
There's
want to give us
a
a call in and talk about this stuff and add more stuff into the conversation of what you think is going on, 818-431-8241. That's 818-431-8241. I was really, really sick this week, actually. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I almost played some reruns for you guys, but I just figured, I'm going to go ahead and rip it out on my own personal preferences of the things that I've seen in my life, where I look at, where the foundations of our shows have been from, and what we're trying to portray today. And it's all about freedom of mind, I mean, again, we can go into all these historical, patterns in history of life, which is fascinating. I mean, it explains a lot. It's incredible how history will tell you more things than you could ever have anybody just put right out in front of you. You start questioning and putting more things together than you ever imagined. But in the same sense, let's look at what we got. We got commercials that say drugs are bad, and then they get all personal with us with the same emotions they put in there in the first place. And I mean, think about it. We got these shows to grasp a sense of what is supposed to be normal. Beaver Cleaver, Friends, and then you got these commercials saying, oh, drugs is why you don't have a normal family. Judge the abnormality and point them out so we can fix society. Man, if you ever walk down the street, dude, most of the people you look at are pretty fucking abnormal looking, dude. You know what I'm saying? And thanks to all the narcs and rats for being such upstanding, brainwashed douches in society. And thank you for not minding your own business, as a corporate American person, And in the show, we talk about how people had positive religious experiences. Well, you heard this guy talk about one, and belief. Big thing to me, he said, people's beliefs. What do you believe? And how should your beliefs cast down our beliefs? Because they're only real to you by your experience. Not saying that they're not real, but the real question is, are you saying my beliefs are not real? Is that what you're saying? Go do your own thing and don't affect me, and I might get there at my own task. Mistakes are meant to be made so you can learn from them, right? I mean, wouldn't you concur?
Well, that's what they say.
That's what they say. So if you're watching a TV, you think you're out there making any mistakes?
Well, I'm sure people make mistakes all the time,
Yeah, but, I mean, we had talked about marijuana before.
I think people ought to be educated on things, not saying, this is the way and that is not the way. Why? Why is it that way? What is it that makes these things so bad in the first place?
So let's go ahead. Let's back it up the show, too, then. We're going to go ahead and step right off range. Let's go back the show to where we had talked about hallucinogenics and our personal experiences. And, I mean, I've had some good times, I'm not going to lie, but I used them as like a spiritual outlet, a tool in a certain sense. It wasn't like I was like, trying to get all wasted, you know what I'm saying? And so when I took them, yeah, I felt euphoric and I had a really good time. I laughed my ass off is basically what I'm trying to say. And, would you concur to these experiences yourself?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously drugs lead to personal, religious-like experiences, right?
Yeah, I would definitely concur.
You come to certain kinds of understandings, whether it was good or bad. I mean, people have bad times with or without these substances, and doesn't mean they're going to commit suicide or not. I mean, this is just the way of life. And I think
I'd say everything's good in moderation, even moderation itself sometimes. You got to think of it like this, like, in a sense, some people don't ever do drugs, you know what I'm saying? And then some people go out there and they, smoke pot once in a blue moon, you know what I'm saying? They get out of work, they lay down in bed, they put on the boob tube, and that's exactly what it is, turns you right into a boob, and then you basically smoke a little doobie and unwind from the world, and you go to sleep. Well, what's the difference between that and somebody coming home drinking a couple of beers and unwinding and maybe getting outraged and beating his wife compared to somebody smoking a little bit of weed and becoming a lot more humble? I mean, people do your research too. If you've, have an objective opinion to marijuana, go see how many violent occasions have actually occurred because of marijuana, or was it the individual himself being a violent person, and look at alcohol being an instigator. And alcohol completely makes people irrational, and you can say something or look at somebody, and all of a sudden they take it the wrong way, and they just want to pick a fight with you, I mean, you can look at, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's happened to us.
Well, that's what makes alcohol the choice drug for the elites, because that makes even normal people into idiots. Dang.
Well, actually, we had a choice over marijuana and alcohol, and we picked alcohol. Well, now I think it's time that people stand up for both. And
no, it was that people were willing to get obliterated off alcohol and go around with guns and shoot people over it.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense. Gives you balls.
Yeah.
Balls you never have.
Just like Red Bull gives you wings.
Yeah. Yeah, go have some whiskey. You'll be feeling frisky. Yeah, exactly. And that's the point, is like, you look at this so-called war on drugs, and then you got a world that's pretty much right full of drugs. All the propaganda around you is telling you what's acceptable and what's not, becomes brainwashed and indoctrinated in us, and it just goes right along with the Matrix. And, this show is all about pointing out free will and free choice and what's here at the moment. And we also like to bring in history and very key points, but I feel like in a sense of where we were going with this, it's like you can go ahead and listen to other shows. I've listened to many shows and done tons of research on this, and they all talk about the same historical stuff, but they don't talk about the stuff that you heard together, put together. How it's like your own choice, man, your own brain, your own free will. What you know may not necessarily be the correct way always, And I could even say the same for myself, too, because I'm the same. I watch TV. You've watched plenty of movies, I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what are you going to do about this? See, people are planned on, already it's plotted in that people will just accept this to happen. And they just accept it. And then they're just going to go and break the law when they don't. And then they become lawbreakers. Instead of being people that may have messed up or something, now they're criminals. I think it's a little weird.
Hey, I guess we got Fred in there. Is Fred in there? Go ahead, Fred. Man, go ahead and let's hear some history.
You are going so far out in left field. I mean, you're at way out of the ballpark. This has nothing to do. Listen. This has nothing to do except for control. Go back through history. Drugs have been used in religious, spiritual ceremonies throughout time.
Well, I've said that.
Okay? Now, why are some people addicted to drugs? Because they have been conditioned to have this kind of behavior based on how they have been manipulated through drugs, through food, through psychological programming, radio, TV, advertisement. You just said it. You compared.
I said other things.
You compared a show like Leave It to Beaver with Friends. Okay. Now, was Leave It to Beaver?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it. This is the face value shows that are put across the society as if this is the way that we're supposed to live our lives. This is how it's supposed to be.
The shows like Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, were shows that were based with some moral, ethical convictions behind them.
Yeah.
Shows like Friends had nothing that even remotely resembles ethical or moral convictions. Every once in a while, somebody gets
what I'm saying is, though, is there was there was a sense of, you know, they weren't booting up in there, and if their friends did, you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that you have a specific kind of family kind of friends atmosphere compared to watching Breaking Bad, okay? When you watch Breaking Bad, you kind of want to become a meth maker or the dealer or, the kingpin.
But you're missing the point. The point I'm making is the shows back in the 50s, for the most part, had some moral to them.
Well, like Roseanne?
No, he's talking about earlier, but back in the 50s.
I wasn't there, bro. I wasn't there. I'm sorry.
I know. Listen. I know you
all
weren't
movies
there.
and shows were based on some kind of moral conviction, which would be based on an understanding. So our laws were based on what our moral standards were at the time that the laws were made, right?
Yeah.
Same with like abortion or anything else.
Didn't you were talking about history. And you said you weren't there.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Lay it on me.
What I'm doing is I'm giving you an idea of history.
I'm listening. I'm taking it in.
All right. So what you had was you had a certain sense of morals. You had a certain sense of ethics. You had a certain sense of civic responsibility. You had a certain sense of pride in being an American.
Like Andy Griffin. Like Andy Griffin.
Andy Griffin's a good example. Yeah, it was even shows like The Honeymooners, To the Moon Alice. But there was always like a more. These were people who, through the expression of television, these characters did, in fact, represent a portion of the population, okay?
Yeah.
People could relate to them. Now, something changed, and the changes began to take place gradually over a period of time. If you go back to, let's go back to the beginnings of this country. There were, in the North, in the colonies in the North, there were people who were of a very, very strict particular sect of religion, and they did persecute, run out, do whatever they could to either convert you or cast you out of their place. This is in the colonies prior to the American Revolution. Oh, yeah. In fact,
I'm going to say something real quick, okay? And I think you can concur to this because it's just real quick. In show 2 and hallucinogenics and how they link to the subconscious and conscious realities, we had talked about religion in there too, and how some people, through their religious beliefs, they have certain levels through the ancient religious times, and ancient times. And through your comprehension levels and skills, that would be your religious status. And the higher your levels of enlightenment would go, would base off your religious status. So if one person was to, let's say, take some ayahuasca or take some peyote or even some mushrooms, your effects would be different through each person. And maybe one person doesn't need to take these things because you're already on that plane yourself of where you need to be. And so this is where I believe the religious aspect comes in between these drugs. Now go ahead and proceed.
Let me give you an example. Let's say we were out in the woods one time, okay? Ancient years ago. We come across a shady spot, and we sit down, and we see these mushrooms. And we nibble on these mushrooms. And we have an epiphany. We have a psychoactive, hallucinogenic, whatever you want to call it, experience because of these mushrooms. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, we discuss it amongst ourselves and say, hey, this is pretty good stuff. And we begin to have visions because it is not only mind expanding, but it is also soul expanding or spirit expanding.
Now, so visions as in mental visions or actual visuals? Because I never have visuals. I've never had a visual. But I have had mental vision.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. But the idea is that you have a way of seeing things. I'm not talking about hallucinations like seeing the traffic signal.
Yeah, you're not going to see a purple elephant sitting in your room, but you might see the walls vibrating. You might see,
and you might see a traffic light melt on Collins Avenue at 3 o'clock.
I can understand melting.
Okay? But here's the thing: as soon as you focus, okay, and I mean focus your alertness, your concentration, it all goes away. You know, you see reality.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, didn't we talk about that, Crowley?
What is that called? I want to get back to the religious aspect.
Okay.
Religions were created by a group of people who discovered that they can manipulate other people and control them.
So they discovered what reality actually consists of?
Well, you were talking about law, okay? There is...
So you think this has a lot to do with the magic in life and Enochian magic?
Well,
maybe?
Reality consists of consciousness, right?
Well, there was...
So when you know that all you have to do is change your thoughts and then reality changes, and then you hide that from other people,
once said,
then you can control it all.
Somebody once said...
Somebody wants to keep playing the game, bud, is what's happening.
Somebody
keep riding the ride.
Keep riding the ride. They got a lot invested in this ride. They want to keep playing. That's
what are you saying, Fred? I'm sorry.
If somebody once said, if you want to change the way the world looks, change how you look at the world. That is exactly what you were saying about thought. In fact, there was a whole, there was a book and a couple of videos, films about it. One was called What the Bleep Do We Know? And the other one was called The Secret. And both of them reveal a secret that was kept by these early founders of religion in that sense that thought creates.
But see, I've been knowing that stuff way before The Secret ever came out. Like, I've been preaching that shit to my friends, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I saw The Secret. And then, you know what, I'm like, I don't need to see that. See, I look at it like this. And then they're like, well, it sounds like you already saw The Secret. I was like, beautiful.
I lived it. No. I lived it. When you found out about things like that, I was practicing things like that. I was creating what I wanted in life. Now, a lot of friends...
I'm doing it right now. I'm still doing it every day.
How come you're doing this and doing that, but you never made a lot of money doing it? I said, because the money was never the object.
Money's not everything. Money's not life.
I created reality.
Look at what money does. You take money and then you try to go get what you want.
Get money.
With the money.
The idea is...
money's not the object.
Money's the game. Money's the... You know when they have the hot dog in front of the dog? You know when they put the dog and you have the stick on his head with the hot dog dangling in front of him and he's running, trying to get the hot dog, but he's never going to get it because it's tied to his head. You know? Well, that's money.
No, money is... Oh, God, man. Money doesn't mean anything. Money is only an agreement. Okay? It's an agreement. You know,
so isn't everything else.
Listen, I got lettuce, you got tomatoes, and he's got onions. Okay?
Yeah.
So we agree how many onions he will give for how many tomatoes, and I agree how much lettuce I will give up for how much onions and how much tomatoes, and we all have a salad. You follow me?
Yeah.
Now, if you have to go a long way to get radishes, the guy that has radishes may not need anything else for a salad. So you have to be able to offer him something. This is where the idea of currency comes from. It's an illusion. It's an agreed on whether it's salt or gold or silver or ivory, you know, or wooden sticks that has a king's seal on it. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, everyone in a group of commerce and trade agrees that is a form of exchange that they'll all accept. That's all it is.
It's an agreement upon labor. Somebody will have to labor to do something.
So let's talk about drugs. How did drugs come into a part of where it became the biggest control?
Drugs is somebody had an enlightenment and was like, well, we can use this to manipulate other people into not thinking about the things that we're thinking about.
Yeah. Okay.
We're thinking about these things. We're getting drugs. And now they won't think about the things that we're thinking about because they'll be thinking about the drugs. But we're the ones giving them the drugs, so obviously we got plenty of drugs.
Here's one for you that'll really blow your mind. Once upon a time.
Not too long because we only got like fucking 4 minutes left, and then we're going to play a song. And we're out of here.
Once upon a time, there were two princes. One's name was Ramses. The other prince's name was Tutmosis. But everybody called him Moses for short, okay? And they were kind of like rivals. Moses was a pretty smart guy. He was an engineer. He was a scientist. He understood things. He was also a mason. And he decided, rather than go through the whole rigmarole with the temples and all that, he was going to take this group of people and see if he can teach them something. So he left Egypt, and he went east, and he settled into this valley over there near the Jordan River. And he took these old Mesopotamian texts, and he translated them into the language of these people, and he created a whole new sect of people based on a religion that he made up.
Like the Mormons?
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the Israelites for crying out loud. We're talking about pharaohs. Where in history can you find Moses?
Yeah, but that's not where he got the knowledge from.
Well, of course
they call him the lawgiver. And there's been a lawbringer many, many times in history. So Moses isn't the only one.
You're reading from the books that...
From what book?
He wrote. He wrote them. So
I'm not reading from that book.
Hey, you know what? That's a conversation for another day.
I'm not bringing that information like that.
That's a conversation for another... That's a whole other topic.
The lawbringer, I mean, you gotta think about what Moses was talking about, man. He's talking about the oldest ideas in history. And it wasn't that he brought that to the Israelites. That was already known knowledge by the Arabs. Moses went out to the desert, and who did he talk to out in the desert? It's written in the Quran. He talked to the Arabs, bud.
Wait a minute.
He talked to the Arabs.
You guys are hilarious. You know what?
From the desert to the Israelites about the one true God, and that's how they left the desert there. Obviously.
Yeah. I have this argument with people all the time.
That's called knowledge.
You know what?
Man.
We got another show next week. We're going to have to talk together, actually. We're going to have to conspire together. That's all we got for tonight. Okay, the next song you're going to hear is called Colorblind. I want to thank the listeners for listening. Kevin Blanche, Fred Marsco, Denny, Tiffany, and DTM Wicked Radio. Check it out. Thanks a lot, Chris and Vic. And see you all next time on Subliminal Sanity. Remember, not all drugs are good. Some are great. Here's Colorblind.
Yeah.
color to me, something that I have never seen. Color blind, color blind, color blind, color blind. That color and you recognize it as blue. But maybe if I could see through your eyes, I wouldn't need to recognize the color, 'cause it'd be some unimaginable color on a unimaginable color spectrum for me. Whoa. Color blind, color blind, color blind, color blind. Too much for me to say. Everything would be a new, strange, trippy color. My mind would explode from sensory overload. My mind would explode from sensory overload. My mind would explode sensory overload. Would explode, sensory overload. My mind would explode.